All right, Seth. So first of all, I'm really interested in just what you do in general because of all the subjects in school that I could not give a shit about, psychology was actually one that I really did care about because it was just so fascinating and it's important to understand relationships is understanding how people think, right? So you started off with the whole LA industry and you did acting and all that. So how did we get from acting and writing to working with mental health like you do today?
I actually started with an undergrad in psychology. So I went to Emory University in Atlanta and I got my bachelor's in psychology, expecting to one day have a private practice. I was also doing some acting and I was writing, and I had written a screenplay. I knew nothing about writing, and Emory at the time didn't really have a film program. So I'm older. So I graduated in 96. So Emory had no film program. So I went to a school called Clark Atlanta, which is one of the Black universities in Atlanta. And I called a professor there and said I wanted to essentially like bend your ear and just ask him questions. I don't know anything about it. And I met with him. He's like, come take classes here. I said, great. I finished Emory early. So I ended up at Clark Atlanta doing film classes, which I loved. So I was writing a lot and shot something and edited it over there and decided after working in Miami for a little bit that I wanted to go to LA. And so I moved to LA and I was an actor and writer for a very long time before I went back to school to get my master's in clinical psych.
Did acting have anything to do with psychology, just even getting in the minds of characters? Did that kind of intertwine at all?
I mean, psychology is definitely, I mean, it's impossible, right, to understand a character without understanding the psychology of who the character is. And the more you understand about psychology, I think the better work you can do as an actor and the better you can do as a writer in writing characters.
Right.
When I would write stories and characters, that's really where I started. Every character I ever played and everything I ever wrote, I always wrote bios of my characters. Stuff that never came out in the script, never came out in the scene. I just wanted to understand how they were raised, right? What they, sort of always yearned for, what they wanted. And it helped me understand the character so I never felt lost in the scene. It's why I was always able to improv very easily when I used to do a lot of improv, which is as long as I understand who this person is, it was irrelevant if you forgot the lines or if you were doing an improv scene, you understood what was necessary in the scene, you understood what you wanted.
That's really cool. So it's like, it doesn't even really matter if you completely stick to script. You're saying if you understand your character, even if you forget, you know what your character would do. Is that what you mean?
Yes. You've done so much work on your character's backstory. How can you get lost, right? You understand what's driving him. You understand what his fears are. You understand sort of all this stuff about your character that, yes, the words essentially, if you get lost in them, are irrelevant. I mean, it always made me feel very comfortable in a scene to be able to understand who I was.
Did you get this idea to write bios for characters from somewhere, or was that something you did on your own?
I think I actually got it initially from Howard Fine, who I studied with, who was probably using Uta Hagen technique. And I don't remember if she used to push for bios, but my bios ended up being really extensive because I was also a writer. So I would start writing these bios that ended up really helpful for me. They seemed ridiculous at first. Like, what am I doing? You have an audition. Why are you playing with this? But it ended up helping me a lot as a writer as well, which is whenever I wrote anything, my characters had such strong points of view because I understood them so well.
Was there ever a time in your life where when you're writing all these bios for other characters, whether it was something completely opposite from you or maybe close to you, was there ever a point where you almost got yourself confused with the characters, or were the lines ever blurred with like, who am I?
I think I understood who I was, but I guess you could say I ended up on the page many times.
Yeah.
I guess that would be the blurring. Parts of me were always in scripts, were always in things I wrote.
What was it about psychology and just understanding people that drew you in to want to make this your life's practice?
So I don't think what drove me was like wanting to understand people initially. Like it wasn't that I really just wanted to deeply understand who people were, although I always loved getting to know people. I think it really came from a place where my role always ended up being the friend who helped other friends with issues, that I was really, naturally empathetic. I cared a lot. I struggled a lot as a kid as well with depression. And I had a psychologist who was, great for me. And that therapist, I think, was really impactful, on me in terms of where I, landed and helped get me out of this sort of stage where you can't see the forest for the trees. And so I knew the kind of work I wanted to do. I always thought I would be a private practice therapist. So that's what I loved about it. And then, yes, I like understanding people. I mean, I think if you're sharp and you're logical and, people are interesting and unique, and it's really interesting to see what drives them. And you learn so much about who people are, and you learn so much about yourself as well.
When you were speaking to me before about your practice, one thing you said you love is that you work with a range of all different types of issues, even in entertainment, and then people that have been to jail. So in just your experience, I feel like you've just met so many walks of life. What are some of your best takeaways, or what have you learned from them even?
I always learn from clients. It's impossible not to, right? I carry my clients with me everywhere. I think about them often, and I learn from my clients in terms of the decisions they make in life, the choices they make in life. And I have clients who do things better than I do, right? Meaning I might understand the best way to approach something, and yet that client can probably do it easier than I can. I think, oh, wow, you really handled that really well. I don't know if I would have handled that so well.
I like that perspective that you're just even the teacher.
Yeah, I'm not perfect. I've got plenty of issues. I mean, I work on myself all the time. I mean, I joke a lot, but I think I have a very good understanding of who I am. I'm pretty grounded, and I'm able to see my flaws and be open about them. And I love people who do the same. And in terms of my clients, I think I attract clients who probably are similar in some ways. The diversity of clients, does come from the different worlds they're from. So if the client is, a movie star, or a client who just left my office, who is, struggling with fentanyl abuse, who I worked with years ago and came back to me recently, they're in such different places, but what they both appreciate in me, right? Two clients from two different perspectives, struggling with two different things, both said something interesting, which was, I like that you're not judgmental, or, right, I like your approach, or I like to use humor. I like that you allow me to sort of find my way into this.
You were saying you think about your clients a lot. Does it ever get hard to turn off that switch when you leave work? Where does it ever affect your personal life, where you can't get someone off your mind, or someone you just couldn't help and it's driving you crazy?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I did say I carry my clients with me, and that's true, right? That they're always there. I think about my clients. They pop up at various times, or I'll think of something and write it down that I want to remember to tell them, or, I'll watch something and recommend something to a client. So they're part of my world, just as my friends and my family are part of my world, right? Mm-hmm. My clients are carried with me. I am in this office, right? Morning to night with clients all day. They are part of my world. So that's, the wonderful thing is, the best parts of them are part of my world. The difficult thing is that people aren't always doing well, right? And people are in crisis, or people are having, real crisis that I also might carry with me. And I have to do my best not to carry that in my house, right? Or else I have run out of gas to be there for my family, right? For my wife, for my children.
That was what I was wondering, because when I thought about psychology for myself, that was a fear of mine, that I didn't want to feel so depleted myself because I was trying to give to everyone else. So just being aware of that, kind of the whole approach of you need to put your mask on first before you can help others. I think that is important, because that's the thing, even in your position, I'm sure a lot of people think you have it all together, but you are a person too, and you're figuring things out. And I think that my friends and I say this past year seemed like the conversation of mental health is a lot more open, and people don't seem to be so shy about the discussion anymore. Do you feel you're seeing that too?
So yes, this year has been really interesting, right? So as a therapist, my clients are now privy to a part of my world they may never have been. Not that I don't believe in self-disclosure. I don't believe in blank slate therapy. I don't think it's beneficial even to be a blank slate therapist. It's important for a client to be able to, let's say, to project things onto you, right? You imagine that I'm perfect, or that I never get it wrong, or I never lose my temper, right? That those things are important for you, for us to be able to do the work, especially the kind of psychodynamic work that I do. And we can get into that in a bit. But that my clients now have had access to me in a way they wouldn't, meaning there was a pandemic and I had to work from home, and I had to work from my kids' room. And I was on Zoom that I couldn't even figure out, and my internet kept going out because both of my kids were also trying to figure out homeschooling, and we had a new puppy, and the door was opening, and my kids would walk in while I was talking to a client, and all of a sudden my clients are thrown into my world, right?
Oh my gosh.
Bad and good. The good is I am going through this with you. I am also in lockdown and figuring out what this means. I'm also trapped at home, right? With my kids trying to figure out how to do school from home. I mean, my kids have been home for a year now. They have not been in school yet.
My
So
therapist actually did say the same thing even when we were talking about fighting with family over politics. She's like, you know what, me too. And I do think kind of breaking that professional wall a little bit, not even professional, but just saying like, here's my human too, really did make me feel better. So that makes a lot of sense where people can just see you at your realist form too.
yeah.
And now you were saying you were going to dive into your practice a little deeper. So what is it about you and why even go off on your own practice? Why not just be with another company? What was the fuel behind all that?
I told you, like, I had always imagined being a private practice therapist. It was the kind of work I wanted to do. I've worked in rehabs and I would work with clients, a lot of addiction work. And I worked in a dual diagnosis facility where I worked with clients who are dealing with addiction, and it's a co-occurring disorder, right? Addiction along with, and often things like schizophrenia, bipolar with psychotic features, more serious, difficult psychosis stuff, which would play out in therapy at times, right? Someone, would lose it in the middle of a session and be having a psychotic break. And I had to sort of deal with something I never dealt with before, right? I don't get this in private practice. That is not the work I do in private practice. So interesting work. What I did take in my private practice is generally I have high functioning clients, but I always keep a part of my practice sliding scale. So a client may reach out to me who I worked with, in a rehab facility, and they're getting it together and I care about them. Like, I don't care. I had a client I used to let pay for one of my groups. I also do group therapy, like with whatever change he had in his pocket. So I always keep a part of my practice and will always keep a part of my practice to make sure that all of my clients aren't one type, especially economically. That's a part of it. And then the private practice part of it also allows me to work for myself, which for me is really important. I don't even know what it's like generally to work for someone else. So I love the work. I take it very seriously. And so when I started this private practice, I took on now associates, and I have a group. I have a Menachem psychotherapy group, and I'm bringing in another therapist. And now I'm training my associates. And I also supervise a trainee in grad school, helping him do work in a rehab. And I really like teaching people about the way that I work with clients, doing the work, going over case study stuff. And it also keeps you a sharper therapist, you meaning me. That's you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was kidding. I'm not always funny at the end of a long day. I like doing that work because it makes me a better therapist, right? You always have to look at your own stuff. In talking about cases with them, it helps me even think about the way I'm conceptualizing cases. And the other thing is you look at your own biases. And I have no problem constantly looking at my stuff. It's so good if you can constantly look at your stuff. Not
And
that it's
constantly changing and evolving, right? We're not the same people we were even 6 months ago, which that's what I love about being a human, actually, is that every single day we do have all this room to make a change if we want to.
Yeah.
And what about the person, and this is not really a fun question, but what about a client that you've really gotten a relationship with, you genuinely care about them, as I'm sure you do all your clients, but what if this is their fourth time, fifth time back into addiction? Like, do you ever feel like you're just kind of saying the same things? Like, what if you just don't know what else to do for them?
So that can happen with any client. It doesn't have to relate just to addiction, which is that clients feel stuck, right? And I'll start to feel stuck, which is great, right? That what we call countertransference is very telling. Why am I feeling stuck in therapy? Oh, my client's feeling so stuck, right? And I can use that. Like, what's going on? Are you feeling stuck? As I am as well. So people do get stuck in patterns. And with addiction, it's, exceptionally difficult and also really sad to watch. And sadly, the outcome is, death at times. And if a client is at a point where I think they need a higher level of care, I stop seeing them and ask them to go into a rehab. And I've done that. I had a client show up who I also worked with some time ago, and he wanted to work with me in private practice, and he rolled up his sleeves without thinking. And I saw the marks on the arm, and he said they were old. And I took a look and I said, I know you. I've worked with you for a long time. And those are, fresh track marks, and got him into rehab. I won't take someone on who's sort of so active in using that they're unable to even do the work.
Right.
Now, if someone's saying, I'm here to do the work and, I'll do some extra work with them, which is find a detox facility or find a program for them and incorporate therapy into it, or incorporate therapy after a certain point. But that's how I've handled it.
Are all your clients willing to come themselves? Like, could anyone say their family had an intervention for them, that type of thing? Could anyone be pushed into your office without saying they wanted to be there?
No. I mean, someone could show up and not want to be here, but the way I operate as a therapist is I look at therapy as a luxury. Like, it's amazing to be able to do it. I feel the same way about my own therapy. You said you were in therapy. I mean, I did my last therapy run for a decade. To be able to have the opportunity to go to a place and work on yourself in a 50-minute space, my therapist used to only give me 45. To have that space is so important, right? And so I look at it the same way. And then in terms of clients who don't want to be there, who are like, I'm happy with the way I'm living my life, or I don't give a shit, or I want to keep using, I say, okay, then keep using. I don't say you should stop using. I say, oh, you want to keep using? Okay. What's that look like for you, right?
How's that going to end up?
Yeah, or why are you here? What's your life look like right now? And let me know when you're ready, or if you want to do some work, or if you want to make any changes. And if not, you are free to live out your life however you want to.
I think setting it up that way could even make your patient more willing to just talk to you, because you're already coming off with this casual, I'm not going to attack or force anything on you, which I think can benefit you to get them to open up.
Sure. And there's even times that approach is discussed using it. And I think people will look at the therapist as a parent. So they'll rebel against the therapist like a parent. And there's some who say that therapy is resistance, right? That is, the crux of therapy. There's some schools of thought that is what the therapy is. And you work within that resistance.
I always hear people say in therapy that we always come back to this childhood trauma, and you are the way you are because of something in childhood. Is that always true?
I don't believe so. I do believe that trauma affects us all differently. I do think that we are molded by our environments without a doubt. But I also think that people are a certain way. People come out a certain way. Now, how are parents attuned to that? What kind of world we were raised in because we are that way? Well, that's something else, right? I might be someone who looks for adventure or danger. And I grew up in a certain environment where that led me to a life of crime. But I also could have grown up in an environment where that led me to become a police officer.
Right.
And with addiction, people use addiction, use substances or food or sex or gambling for all kinds of reasons, and to numb things out or to feel things, or however it is they use it. But they also have a different reaction. I would argue, not everyone, but I would argue that many people have a different reaction to the substance. I was given oxycodone after I forgot what kind of surgery, and I felt sick, like I have zero interest. Mm-hmm. Whereas a client on my couch might say to me, I felt lit up from within. I took it and I knew, oh my God, I found the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. I took it after wisdom teeth and I didn't feel anything. Not saying I'm super strong, but like it just nothing fun or bad. Like it was nothing.
We have different reactions to it. Yeah, you might chemically just react to it differently.
When you see, especially the news of just what happened in Denver and a week ago in Atlanta, when you
the shooting in Boulder,
when you see events like this, working in your field, does it hit you any differently? I always can't help but think that if this person just had the communication or the skills that they needed, that everything could have been so much different. Do you ever just wonder like what's going on in their mind and that this had to be, I mean, obviously a mental issue, but am I making sense if things just like make you think even more? Because it's just like this is the problem, mental health.
I have reactions to it as a human being. I have reactions to it as someone who feels a certain way about gun restrictions and licensing. So I have that sort of stuff that comes up. And then, of course, I have my reactions as a therapist. In Boulder, we don't know a ton about it. I think what we just found out from the brother of the shooter, or the last I read, was that he seemed to have mental health issues, that the brother thought they were exacerbated by him being Muslim and being made fun of, that might have contributed to some antisocial personality stuff, but that he seemed to be increasingly paranoid, and it looked like he was having a psychotic break. And so it had been going on for a while, and I really don't know sort of how that was addressed or what happened, but pair that with access to a lot of guns and we're going to get repeated mass shootings.
Now, shifting more towards you, what do you do on your days when, I guess, you just wake up sometimes and you're like, for some reason, something's off, and I am grateful and I love my family and I have a nice house and I have food to eat, but like something just doesn't feel right. Do you ever have those days?
No, I've never had that feeling.
Never? Oh, I was like, no, me neither. Yeah, no, never have.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling, Haley. I know that feeling well. So what do I do on those days? I mean, I have those days often. I'm a human being. There's all kinds of feelings. First of all, make sure that I build certain things into my world. So one, I'll check my schedule, and I try to be better about paring my schedule down when I think I'm working myself too hard. So if a client, leaves therapy, I won't take on another client at that time, and I'll keep a waiting list and not push myself to work, more than I should, because I have to take care of myself as well. So I keep a good full schedule, but I also do supervision. I also do training. I have other things I'm interested in. I also take care of myself. And there'll be times I realize, I've made no time to see friends. I'm not exercising. And so I have to build that into my world again. Right now, I built in an hour lunch break in my day, and I will eat a little something that I bring to work, and I make sure to walk 20 minutes one direction, 20 minutes back. Like that's my thing that I'll make sure to do. So at least I'm moving myself, because I sit so much in here, right? And now, especially I'm on a computer. I mean, I have a few clients that come in now. I had COVID and I had the vaccine, and I'm allowing some clients to come in, but a lot of it, this is work that is in a chair.
So essentially just doing the little things where you can to prioritize your basic needs, really, just knowing that you need the things you need to keep you happy and filling up your cup so then you can give it to other people. So is that what you mean? Just like finding ways?
You're absolutely right. I mean, you need to fill up your cup to be able to give it to others. You need to take care of yourself, or you can't do the work. It's unfair for me to push myself to the point where I can't, give to my clients the way I should. I always want to make sure that I'm fully invested. I always say, and people think I'm joking, but I truly, at the beginning of my day, always think about what I'm doing and really sort of to myself say, I appreciate what I'm doing. I feel lucky that people are investing themselves with me, that they're putting their trust in me, that people who are, in crisis or people who are working on themselves trust me to do the work, and I take it very seriously. And I always make sure to sort of ground myself that way in the morning. I really do. It is so important for me, because I the
perspective a little bit where it used to be people thinking that if you put yourself first, it's selfish, this and that. But I do feel like the conversation's changing a little bit more, where people are like, you know what, I do need to make sure my needs are met first, because I mean, we all know how we come off to people when we don't feel fulfilled. We're meaner, we react faster. So it does seem like another silver lining of this past year is that with people getting a little bit more time to themselves, they've been able to learn what works for them and how you're not being selfish, but that's just self-care by being there for yourself first.
That's right.
My last question for you, I could keep you forever, but as far as resources, is there one book, is there one podcast, something that's so substantial in your life that you could recommend to someone who, even if they're not having any type of mental health struggle, just something that could just be uplifting or anything like that?
So the kind of stuff I read and listen to tend to be, I've definitely read my fair share of psychology books. I love social psychology stuff. I, listen to everything by Malcolm Gladwell, and I've read all his books, and I'm a big fan. And I just picked up the book Originals, Adam Grant, who does organizational psychology, I believe. And so I'm enjoying that book. But for me, I like to constantly be curious. I think it makes me a happier, healthier human being. I'm naturally built that way anyway. I'm always challenging myself. I have, little weird things I'm playing with, memorizing cards or solving the Rubik's Cube faster, or doing. I constantly just need to have challenges. I love having little challenges, and I love learning new things. Like, to me, YouTube is the greatest invention in the world. I wish as a kid that I had YouTube. Right? I'm 46. I had the World Book Encyclopedia. That's what I had. And I would look and I would get lost in the World Book. It's unfathomable that YouTube could have existed. My kids now ask me questions. My son asked me how to do something. I'm like, I don't know, go on YouTube. And he's like, Dad, thanks so much. You showed me how to do that coding thing. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but YouTube's great.
Right. Next thing you know, they're hacking into your computer.
Good. He can help me figure stuff out. I don't know how to do it.
I really appreciate your time. And I think you've definitely got the right approach, that just life, there is so much to learn. And the second we think we've got it all figured out, everything's going to change again. So we might as well, I'm learning this, might as well just go with the flow and control the.
That's right. Very Taoist of you. Be flexible, go with the flow.
Thank you so much again, Seth. I hope you have a great night and spend it with your family. And I hope to see you soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.